Most change doesn't start with a plan. It begins with discomfort, with the moment you realize that if you don't act, nothing changes. In South Africa, dignity and hope are often spoken about as ideas. But what do they look like when you have nothing? I'm Saskia Falcon, and today I'm joined by Sheriff Ramoabi, a community organizer, a food justice activist, and a healing circle facilitator, whose work asks a powerful question. What does dignity and hope look like when you have almost nothing except the will to act? Sheriff, thank you so much for being here. Let's start at the beginning with where you come from. You were born in Wheatbank, raised in Lesotho, and later moved to the Western Cape. What did growing up look like for you?
Well, firstly, growing up in Lesotho was very majestic, adventurous, and moving here in the Western Cape, it was really new. There's cities, tar roads, fast cars, shacks. So it was a really interesting and scary environment at first.
How old were you when you moved to the Western Cape?
I moved here when I was 7.
Wow. Okay. And when you arrived, what did you notice about hunger, unemployment, and opportunity, especially for young people then, as you were growing up in this new environment?
For me, in the beginning, it seemed as if we were protected because of the school that we attended. We attended a Waldorf school. But I started noticing in the community that I stayed, the community that I lived in, that the same opportunities that I had at this Waldorf school, the children at our community didn't have the same opportunities. And so as a young South African or a young Sotho girl in this environment, you start noticing that there's a difference between myself in this private school and my friend or my next door neighbor attending a public school. For instance, I joined a drama group and she wanted to join a drama group, but there wasn't any sort of drama group available in the location.
What did you notice about hunger, unemployment, and opportunity?
Hunger and poverty has been part of our society. But when I go back to how I, saw the world as a 12-year-old, I would get into our school bus and we would travel to McGregor. I attended a Waldorf school. And the same time that we're getting on a bus, and this is about 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30, we have farm workers that would get into a bakkie and they would also be going to work. Then you've got other taxis driving fabric workers to their jobs. And you can see that many people have different activities. And at that time, as a young child, I didn't really notice much. But I could see that there was a definite difference between how we ate in Lesotho and the meals that we had and the meals that we had when we were this side in the Western Cape. It was very different. We usually had green, papa ka moroho, and so when I came this side, it was mostly pap and chicken, and it really was different for me because our grandmother used to teach us that, our food comes from our hands. And so we have to be the ones that make sure that this food is looked after, watered. And so in the Western Cape and where I stayed, that was not prioritized and that was different. And so as I grew up, I could see that there's an important need for us to be aware of what we eat, the sort of people we surround ourselves with. So just speaking on hunger and poverty, as a young woman currently, I can see that it's a definite struggle. And even seeing my community, that we only just really, most of us are just hoping that the fabric doesn't close. It's a source of employment for most of the young people and the older generation. So hunger is a big issue. Deep in the rural areas, it's a huge crisis.
You and other young people then began planting on small pieces of land, using bottles, tires, whatever you had.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about what it means to grow food, but especially in the context of South Africa where you don't officially own the land, and land is hard to come by.
So we started Guerilla Garden, and like I said, I grew up in a family that, is very much close to the land. And so when we started Guerilla Gardening as the young people, it was because of the One Woman, 1 Hectare campaign. At first, I was practicing backyard gardening with my mom and other local women who were our neighbors. And my friends and the rest of the young youth that I, interacted with, and they knew what Rural Women Assembly was about, I introduced them that, let's just try to grab, even if it's a piece of land that is unused, and let's start something just small, and then we'll see what happens. We've been on that piece of land for now almost 10 years, and nobody has came to that piece of land and asked us for leasing or asked us what are we doing there. So Guerilla Gardening is unused land, and you could literally start from a dumping site. You could use a community space, because we tried to ask the local municipality for a piece of land, and we showed them our plan that, if this would actually be supported with tools, some seeds, but essentially Guerilla Gardening can be started from nothing, that's where we started. And currently we are on a 0.5 hectare.
Before you go any further, I want you to talk to me a little bit about, because you've explained beautifully what guerrilla gardening is. In 2019, when you joined the Rural Women's Assembly, now your role is much broader than where it started. But maybe just tell us a little bit about the Rural Women's Assembly as well, because this is not an NGO.
The Rural Women's Assembly would be best described as a self-organized network, or maybe alliances of rural women, backyard gardeners, grassroots organizations, chapters of peasants, in union. We are in 9 provinces in South Africa as Rural Women Assembly, and Rural Women Assembly, just to keep it short, we fight for land, food, seeds, and sovereignty.
Why is that so important, Sheriff, that you're able to work available land, grow food on them? You can talk a little bit about the situation on the ground as well in your municipal district of Langeberg, because you've spoken about hunger and poverty being a crisis. So why is it so important that we're able to work the land?
It's women that are the providers. It's women that go to the gardens and put the seeds in the sand and, in the earth, and we are the nurturers. And so hunger and poverty is a rising crisis. And so the Rural Women Assembly it provided a space for us to really think out of the box, share ideas on how to, combat this a crisis that we're in. Hunger and poverty, it's very much linked to gender-based violence. It's very linked to inequality, And as Rural Women Assembly, we really want to make sure that all the voices are heard. All women are counted. All young people are seen.
I want to ask, where are the men?
The men are there, right? But are not visible. Women need women's strength, because I don't think it's a gender thing, but it's easy to support another woman than it's easier for another man to support a woman, because it's always that thing of these power roles whereby, men have this and women have that. But essentially, we need sisterhood. We need women looking after women. We need girls looking after girls. We need young women aspiring to create spaces for other women so that they can be independent, because that's where even the gender-based violence gets involved. The fact that, you don't have any sort of ownership And that's even now when we get to the land, that we don't own the land in South Africa. We don't own our own houses. We're paying rent that is sky high. We're paying units that are sky high that we can't even afford. And on top of that, there aren't any jobs. Making sure that you acquire yourself with the right skills, like actually joining a Guerilla garden or starting a Guerilla garden in your community, you're combating so much. Most of the women that we work with are seasonal workers, farm workers, and they are single mothers, young mothers, older women, but also staying alone. And so having that extra income from a Guerilla garden or from a backyard garden, it really puts hunger and poverty at the door.
Then in October 2023, the Healing Circle was launched as an initiative of the Rural Women's Assembly. And this was now in direct response to what you guys were actually seeing on the ground. Tell us a little bit more about the Healing Circle, how it works and who it helps.
The Healing Circle initiative was really because as the Rural Women Assembly, one of the effects of why women are not really present and not voicing out their issues is the fact that they don't have spaces where they can, speak. And if they go to the police station, they're not attended by, females that understand or show sympathy. And even in the court, their documents will just get lost. And even going to the hospital, there's really small support for victims or survivors. And so as the Rural Women Assembly, we did a scorecard where we went out into the community to actually speak to healthcare service providers. We spoke to community organizing leaders. We spoke to church leaders. We spoke to teachers, GBV ambassadors in our community. And we saw that there's an actual gap between when I, as sheriff, would get molested or raped, It could even be a household secret for the longest of time. And so we saw that as a gap that, there isn't a lot of support. There isn't a lot of spaces where young people or even older women that have gone through very traumatizing situations or even domestic violence is where they can actually go to somebody and speak to them and get the right assistance. The referral system in our community is horrible.
I think this is such an important point to make. Often when we sit with wanting to access safe spaces when you're in an urban environment, you have choices. But in the rural areas, there's actually nothing. There's nothing. But what was it that you guys were noticing as the Rural Women's Assembly that you needed to create this Healing Circle initiative?
Okay, so I'll go back again to say that the land, the ownership, essentially all of these things are connected. And, during the COVID, that was the actual time that you could see that gender-based violence was at its highest peak because people could not go to work. There were no jobs. And in any case, our women are seasonal workers. There's no permanent jobs. The young people are sitting at home. And so gender-based violence grew stronger, in our community. So when we did the scorecard, it's because we saw how much violence was actually surfacing. And so we asked ourselves, what could we do? What sort of initiative can we do in our own community that could create some sort of, difference? And that's when actually when we spoke to our sisters, we asked them what would be, something useful and something, to remind them who they are, to remind them that they're stronger than their situation. So we also created a link with the local police when we started this Healing Circle to just tell them a little bit of what we wanted to achieve and the relationship that we want them to have with this community, especially with the Healing Circle. So the healing circle essentially started from there.
And what does it look like now? How often do you meet? What happens when there is a woman or child that's in an unsafe situation? Okay. How do you guys organize yourselves to respond?
So the healing circle facilitators, there's three of us. And the two are healthcare workers. So they work really closely with the women because we're working with alcohol abusers, drug abusers, survivors. So they usually meet every Tuesday with them, but as a healing circle, we meet once a month.
Wealth is about more than just numbers. It's about what you're shaping, your ambitions, your priorities, your legacy. That's why Old Mutual Wealth partners with skilled financial planners to bring the expertise of a leading wealth manager to your strategy. They help you make sense of both local and global opportunities, offering clear strategic insight so you can make confident decisions, whether you're building your wealth, protecting it, or shaping your financial future. Take your wealth further.
And what have you seen has been the benefit of that? Like, how have you seen this community of women embrace this space?
I can definitely see progress. I mean, we're not going to, take away trauma immediately. But, they want to heal. And these traumas is not just from just one case. It's just, a multiple trauma that they have faced. And having this space that we created, the healing circle, it has been comforting. It's been a whole sisterhood space for us, even myself, actually. I think it's been a very healing process because even myself, I have my own trauma to deal with. But having other women supporting me and me supporting them, it's really a wonderful space that I wish in different communities we can do this for ourselves because it doesn't need finances. Well, to start it, but to sustain, it would be great to have a safe venue, perhaps material. Like for us, I incorporate my art skills. I speak with art. I use paint to express my feelings, and so I've shared that skill with them, and we create images that really make sense. We use craft, and we're able to sell this craft and generate that income. And this, brings back that I can do this for myself, I can survive. Yes. I don't really need to go back to this relationship. And at some point, one of the women was saying that, I want to get out of this, but as you can see, we stay in the informal settlements and there is no way that I could actually just escape this. I don't have, my family's from Cape Town and I'm staying here. So I have nobody. But because I have this circle, I have you, Sheriff, I don't mind actually going to share with another woman if it means that I can get out of that toxic relationship. And so we've shifted around the women. Some of them are staying together and others, they're actually, we helped another one build up a shack, so it's small, different things that we're doing, and it makes a difference. Because even if she doesn't have a proper job yet, but she goes around now washing other people's clothes and she gets paid. And in that, she's able to put food on the table. She's got her backyard, that she has started with on a tire. And she can get her spinach and her tomatoes and a green pepper from that. So just a little bit of difference, it creates hope. And I know for a fact that if we can get enough support, not just from outside people, but also the community itself, to understand how important this space is. And these women are now bringing their daughters, into the mix. And so we have a daughter-mother kind of session also within the healing circle. Because you'll find that even the younger girls or their daughters, they feel as if their parents don't care. Their mothers are just drinking because they don't care. But when we are in the healing circle and we start unpacking emotions and where things started and currently, what made you do this? What made you start this? You start understanding your mom. We write letters to each other, just to also practice how to share emotions. Because in most cases, when you start drinking and having alcohol problems, some memories are gone. Some emotions are just left there to linger. And so when we start writing and expressing really how you feel about your daughter and what you want your daughter to start seeing, she starts seeing that woman that you were. She sees her mom that wants a better life, and her bringing her into that space, that means that she wants to take the first step.
I mean, it is literally a healing circle. I think we've all been through trauma after trauma, and what you're doing is starting to heal that from the inside out. Tell us a little bit, share with us, why is land ownership, why is that so important? How does it link to all of these other things like unemployment, gender-based violence, even just a lack of confidence?
So I link it because as we were born from the land, but our land has been taken away. We don't have access to our own land that we stay in. We don't have jobs, we're staying in communities that are already deteriorating. I'm linking it to the land because everything starts with what you have or what you can call your own. When you don't have land, you don't have space to have to create just an environment for your child. You can't garden. You can't provide proper support for your children. I mean, the reason why we've got so much unemployment is because most of the land is being used for something else. We've got fields and fields of just grapes that are going to be leaving the country anyways. Young people are not seeing opportunities for themselves in the community. They're looking at those fields as if, at least if I work for the boer, Friday we get paid, and Saturday we go out, Sunday, and then Monday back to square one again. And so it becomes a cycle of just depression, insecurity. It's hard, I must say. Rural Women Assembly started the 1 Woman 1 Hectare campaign, linking it to ownership, linking it to women actually having access to land that they can start being the providers, being the producers, being their own liberators. And so the 1 Woman 1 Hectare campaign has really broadened the space of, look, you may not have a hectare yet, but in your backyard garden, you can start to say, okay, when I have a hectare, I'll have this on that piece of land. And I can even share the space and create something else, like a small playground or whatever. But if you don't have land, there's really small that you can do. But when you have land, there's so much opportunity. So I think the 1 Woman Hectare pushes us women to use communal land in our communities, to use our backyards. And with the 1 Woman 1 Hectare campaign, we started also to just go out into the community and see that what are the small problems that can occur or that are creating barriers that women to start up their own gardens. And we saw that water was the biggest challenge. Because if you're going to have a backyard garden, you need to, water it. And it means that you must use your own water.
Do you get government support in the 1 Woman 1 Hectare campaign? No. Government support at all? And seeds? I mean, you talk about water, but I mean, seeds is the other thing that you would need.
Seeds are very important to us as the Rural Women Assembly. So we fight for seeds because currently there's even seed laws that we can't just share seeds. I mean, that's horrible. And now GMO seeds, when you put them into the ground, the chances is that it might grow and it might not grow. meaning that they want you to go back to the shops and buy seeds again. So it has become, sort of a profit thing. It's not about securing, our food system and making sure that people can actually look after themselves. I remember in Lesotho, my grandmother actually had different jars of seeds from the harvest. And we knew that the next year and the next year we'll always have seeds. And we didn't have to buy them. And so we as the Rural Women Assembly we're saving seeds. And we currently are we're doing seed multiplication. Because, the climate crisis currently is also taking another direction. And we've got seed banks, And so saving seeds means that we also have our own seeds that belongs to us as the women. So we even have within our communities somebody that, talks to us about seeds. Where do they come from? How do you harvest seeds? What time? And so these are very small initiatives, but they're very big because now we don't have to buy seeds. We get it from our seed bank.
You're 27. You're a single mom. Don't you ever feel overwhelmed? How do you cope with your mental health?
Of course, sometimes or some days they're harder than the others. Being a young mom has been interesting, challenging at some point, especially, when you're working with a community that is already dealing with so much. You need people around you to support you also. And as you say, my mental health is my priority. As much as I work with the Healing Circle, it's very important that I'm able to support them sufficiently and be able to go back home and play with my child, take care of my mom. So I have my mom. I have the Healing Circle where I offload. I've got my colleagues that are really supportive women that understand the work that we do. And I think also because I love working with people, I think it's something also in my family because my grandmother was a community worker in our village. My mom is a healthcare worker. It's easy some days and some days are hard, but having that support structure around me really, it makes sense why I should do this, why I should voice out our issues, why I should be the one to, facilitate this Healing Circle.
I know that you guys also work with youth and children in the Healing Circle, and with the lack of resources and expertise that's available to you, you said the other two facilitators are healthcare workers, but do you guys have social workers you can call on, psychologists, that kind of thing? You said that you have access and you established a relationship with your local police. How is that going?
I must say, when we first started, we went to all of these leaders in our communities, and obviously one of them was the police department, which she was part of the whole beginning and understanding why we were doing that. We also have a social worker, actually, that works closely with us. She actually, from time to time, comes to sessions, and if we have something really that we can't discuss, we refer to her. And so the relationship has worked, but also to a certain limit. Because sometimes we would send our woman to the police officer that said she would be assisting us step by step, and she wouldn't be available. And so that also, it breaks trust. So I remember even when we started, one of the women was saying that, I don't know why we're working with the police, because when we arrive there, they judge how we look already. Before I could even tell her what has happened to me, she already judges the fact that, oh, I smell like alcohol, my hair is like this. And sometimes we're not even speaking to a woman. You will be the first person to respond to you will be a man, and he'll ask you really weird stuff like, where were you? Why are you drunk? Those are not the questions you should be asking somebody who's looking for help.
If you could wish for access to immediate resources, what is the one or two things that you wish that the Healing Circle had access to now that you think would amplify the impact that you guys are creating?
A stable venue. If we'd have a safe place, and not just a meeting place or meeting area, but a space whereby even the women can stay there, and look after themselves there in their venue, and have that, okay, if we want to do an activity, we can even do it as a group. Because there's something powerful about unified voices, unified emotions. But essentially what I'm saying is that if we have a proper venue, there's so much we can do. Produce our food, create our craft, sell our craft, teach our children in there, have a small school because even some of the Healing Circle survivors are good readers. There's one lady that reads to the children, and she is an alcohol abuser. So when you see her sober, with the children reading, it's like, what if, what if I take her out of that environment? But yeah, it would be really great to get support of a stable accommodation venue.
Yeah. I want to ask you, across your work now, as you look back with all the work that you've been doing, what are just some of the achievements that you're most proud of?
The Healing Circle.
Yeah, you're doing great work there.
The Guerilla Garden. And my bravery.
You are incredibly courageous.
I mean, I was shy. Hey?
Where did it come from?
I don't know. I think also when I see somebody that can't speak for themselves, and I can see that they're troubled, or perhaps they want to say something, but they feel like it's going to be wrong, or somebody's going to judge them. I want them to be heard, because their idea could be something that takes us out of a whole situation that we were just overthinking, over-prioritizing, things like that. So I think also my self-confidence comes from wanting to speak, wanting to be heard and making sure that other people are also heard.
What do you think this journey has taught you about South Africa and about South Africans?
A lot of resilience from women, young people, South Africans entirely. We are tired of not being heard. We are tired of being neglected or ignored. And we're definitely tired of being hungry and waiting for change when we can be the implementers of our own change.
What is the thing that gives you the most hope?
Networks of women that are daring. It's our time as rural women, as urban women, as young men and women. Because if we don't do things for ourselves, if we don't organize ourselves, if we don't organize our communities, my God.
Sheriff, what did you think about the increases that the finance minister has just announced for social grants?
So people were clapping for 80 Rand increase of the old age grant and 20 Rand for the child support. Jesus, come on. Do they understand the crisis that it's like there's just speaking, but they don't realize our lives. We live in these communities. That 580, it's gone within a day.
Sheriff, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story with us today, and for showing us that when we refuse to accept broken systems, we can actually build solutions that put people first. In places where there are no systems, people become the system. And Sheriff Ramoabi's work reminds us that safety doesn't start with buildings or with budgets. It actually starts when someone says, you're not alone, and we're going to do something about this. You can get involved. Go to ruralwomensassembly.org. Most South Africans have stopped waiting for politicians and government departments to do the right thing, which basically is just to do their jobs. But do we bemoan our fate, our karma, or our bad luck? Or do we get on with what our community needs us to do? This is The Odds in Our Favour. I'm Saskia Falcon, and thank you for listening.